Hi folks, it's John from lastchanceautorestore.com. I'd like to share with you another update. This is the 1968 Pontiac Firebird convertible. In a previous video we kind of did an intro where we showed you the car. It didn't have any of the bodywork on the front. It had a radiator, the front tires, the suspension, and the engine and transmission were basically dry fitted or just set in. If you recall in the earlier video, basically the hardware on the car was just kind of finger tight, and it was set up so that it could be rolled and put in a trailer, and it was in another shop, say 10 to 12 years I think. So basically what we've done, a lot of work has happened since that last video. The first thing that we did is we took some measurements, and unfortunately we've got some areas that aren't quite right. So basically we had mentioned where we wanted to remove the radiator, the headers. If you recall in an earlier video we shared where the headers were touching the frame and they're kind of rubbing in a few spots. There wasn't clearance for the steering the way it was set up. So those were just initial things that we just noticed just visually. Then the next step we want to do is we want to make sure we take some basic measurements just to see if things are square and what we're looking at. So we basically held up a fender, an original fender for the 68 Firebird, and the center where the tire was and the opening of the fender was totally different. So that told us that the wheelbase had changed. So when this new frame was installed, they basically stretched it or made it longer in the front. So a typical Pontiac Firebird from the factory, I believe the wheelbase is 108 inches. So that's the center of the axle at the rear to the center of the hub in the front. From the factory is 108 inches. So we took some measurements before we disassembled the suspension. And on this side I got a little cheat note. So the driver's side, it's 110 and 13/16. And then if we go to the passenger side, center to center, is 109 inches and 5/8. So we've got a little over an inch of inaccuracy. So we wanted to go a little bit further. So we knew we had to remove the headers, the steering components, the front radiator, and then as we started looking a little bit closer, we just need to make this right. So we'll just show you a couple of brief things. First of all, we took a measurement from the front of this nice frame to where we have the mounting point for the upper control arm. So from here to where this bracket is, on the passenger side front we have 14 and 9/16. But when you go to the other side, so our driver's side front, from the frame to this mounting point is 14 and a half. So we basically just really simply, we want to hold a level on and see kind of where we are. So when we set a level on this bracket, so if I set it on this passenger side, you can see I'm nice and flush. So if I'm on the front face of this bracket, to make sure that your front suspension is square, this line should match. So this front bracket where the control arm is attached should be the same, and you can see it's out quite a bit. So that's just a basic visual, and we kind of noticed that, believe it or not, when it was sitting on its wheels. It just didn't look like it was in the right position. So then if we put the level down here, the mounting points, these engine mounts, and you can see the one thing we didn't kind of like is we've got the tubing here for the mount, and you can see it's actually part of it's hanging over this edge. It's worse on this side. So that showed us when the engine was in, it wasn't square. So then I kind of questioned if maybe these might have been wrong. And when you just set a level on, I'd like to point out this is perfectly flush, because sometimes you'll get some welding flux or some splatter which will kind of throw things off. This is a perfectly clean plate on both sides, and it's just a basic where you kind of set the level on this and run it across, and you can see once again our mounting point for the engine mounts. This is nice and flush, and you can see how far this is out. Oh, sorry, I just moved that. So you can see how far this is out. This line obviously should be here. So obviously things aren't square or true. So we're not making fun of anybody. It's just we always want to get a reference point, see if the car is square. If it's not square, what's it going to take to make it right? So essentially what we need to do is we need to remove the brackets that they fabricated onto this nice frame. So we'll remove them, we'll polish the frame again, and we'll be really careful so we don't hurt the frame. And then we'll basically, we'll take some measurements, mark it properly, and then we'll redo this front suspension. So what we'll do is we'll correct the wheelbase, because we want the wheels and the to be centered nicely in the fenders. So when we do that, we're basically going to bring it back to a 108-inch wheelbase instead of 109 or 110. So in the next video what we'll do is we'll just share with you when we have all of these components off, we'll take some more measurements of the back, and then we're going to deal with some of this wiring issues. But it's still, don't get me wrong, this is a very, very nice car. The frame is very well done. We just have some out of square issues that we're just going to have to solve. So in an upcoming video we'll share when this is off. So this is the 1968 Pontiac Firebird convertible. I thank you for watching. I'm John from lastchanceautorestore.com.